Okay, so originally I wanted this video to be shorter than the previous one, much shorter. Unfortunately, I failed completely. I'm sorry. Also, just like the previous one, this video is sponsored by my Twitch channel. Yes, my editing is very lazy, but at least well, there are at least some examples of what I talk about that I can show. There would have been none of those if I didn't stream most of my time with the game. I'm a huge fan of the original game. I played it to death. I never played the PS3 remaster, but now I've played the PS4 version to almost absolute completion. I don't think absolute was necessary there. To completion. I did virtually everything there is to do in the game except defeating a few Colossi I find very annoying in time attack mode on hard. Did most of everything else, really. Pretty much literally everything else I can think of. So let's go by some arbitrary points. This is not a proper review, by the way. It's more like a rant. Number one, or actually, no, point number 0. How about that? I didn't want to make this video. Point number 0, I didn't want to make this video. I really didn't. Unfortunately, I realized it only after I have finished writing it. And now I'm basically just executing the F it, might as well do it kind of routine. Listen, I absolutely love the game. The original Shadow of the Colossus, I mean. And by extension, I kinda like this one. I like it a lot, but I don't love it. I see issues in it, and with some very core elements, in fact. Elements that, to me personally, elements that define both the original version of Shadow of the Colossus and what exactly constitutes a remake. It is something I cannot not talk about when giving my opinion on the PS4 version of the game. And because all the good things about it can be summarized in like 2 sentences, but then I need like half an hour to explain where I think the remake falls flat on its beautiful high fidelity face, I honestly don't know how to not come off negative by the end of the video. Because I really don't want to come off negative. I like Shadow of the Colossus a lot. Okay, let's just get into it. If you don't already, you're gonna hate me for this one. So, finally, point number 1. What is good about this game and why should I play it? This is gonna be a very short one. So, by far the best thing about this game is that it's Wanda Tokyozo, aka Shadow of the Colossus, one of the best and most unique games ever made. If you haven't played it yet, you must. Okay, next one. Point number 2. Is this the definitive version of the game now? Short answer, no, and the reason for it lies in the title of this video. The PS4 remake isn't actually a remake, it's a remaster. An absolutely insane one, but a remaster nonetheless. This game is an absolute one-to-one recreation of the original game with new graphics. Not just updated graphics, new graphics, but the rest of the game is still the same. There is some additional content, yes, implemented a bit sloppily in my opinion, yet very tastefully and respectfully. However, while the graphics are extremely high fidelity, and again, absolutely new, the style of the presentation was drastically changed in a few very core places, as a result of which I'd say about 90% of the time the game looks nothing like the original really, and looks way less interesting, less mystical, less intriguing. The gameplay portion, as I stated previously, is absolutely unchanged. You're not gonna convince me for a second this version was made from scratch. Hell no. Everything gameplay related was lifted directly from the HD remaster made by Bluepoint themselves. Absolutely nothing was changed or improved, and a lot would have been improved in the proper remake of such an old and, well, let's be honest, janky game. That's not a sign of a remake, really, but of a remaster. And the fact that the graphics are new, not only improved, but significantly changed, by the way, it doesn't really overthrow my statement. It's the same game, people. The same. I guess let's talk about what is not the same. Graphics, right? So that's gonna be my point number 3, I guess. So, technically speaking, the graphics of the PS4 quote-unquote remake are amazing, nothing short of. If you play with the Vivid filter turned on. If you don't, the game basically has a Call of Duty 4 color scheme, and exploring its world offers very little joy, in my opinion. The original graphics had to be not only upscaled in just like pure poly count and texture resolution, but in fact most of architecture, the architecture rather, had to be reimagined. Bluepoint had to expand on the models and textures of the original, and I think it was done by them absolutely brilliantly. The PS4 version has a level of detail that in a lot of places wasn't even hinted at in the original, and in my opinion the creative license was applied to the world of Shadow of the Colossus very tastefully, with extreme degree of love and respect. At no point I thought, hey, this structure doesn't look at all like it should. You know? Like, what is this? This is not Shadow of the Colossus, I remember. No. In borderline 100% of cases, my thoughts were, oh my god, this looks amazing, and totally in line with the original direction. Really. With a very big but, unfortunately. And I like big buts, and I cannot lie, so before I state a very unpopular opinion here in a second, I want you all to know, obviously, this doesn't apply to every corner of the world, every cave, every arena, okay? So, here's my but. Get ready. There is no magic in the air. First of all, the sky. The sky looks gray and boring. To start with, the original sky was barely gray at all. It was mostly white, if anything. And the biggest disappointment, it no longer has the insane level of light emanating from it. Yes, sometimes you get a somewhat close to the original effect of the horizon being essentially just a wall of light, but you almost never get it from the sky, and when you do, it is very, very shy. The original sky looked like it itself was glowing. There was no sun to speak of. Instead, it felt like the entire sky was your sun. And on top of that, in and of itself, being very unlike the original presentation, it even creates the additional problem with the visuals. Now you can clearly see the Half-Life 2 style sky vortices at the tips of the light beams generated by, defeated Colossi. I don't even know if those vortices existed in the original. The sky was so bright you wouldn't be able to see them even if they did, really. By the way, I don't know, vortices? I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm improvising here, sorry. The second part of the lack of magic in the air problem is that there's very little haze now. There is some, yes, for things in extreme distance, but that's about it. That's why I say there is no magic in the air, because the original game literally had it. Not always, but way more than the remake. There used to be this ever-present haze, or maybe fog, I don't know, and it felt like the sky was actually illuminating it, and that the air itself was glowing. I mean, if that's not magic in the air, then I don't know how else to call it. Needless to say, the PS4 version doesn't have any of that, pretty much, at all. The game looks way too clean, and it seriously breaks the atmosphere that the original game worked so hard to establish. Also, the game does have Unreal Engine style texture load-in. It takes a few seconds for all of them to appear after the game finishes loading, which brings the usual in such cases question of, why couldn't you make the load screen just a few seconds longer then? I'm pretty sure the engine knows when the textures are fully loaded. Maybe use this information, right, and code accordingly. I don't know, but since a lot of games have this problem, I guess, there are some technical difficulties. So I don't know. It's very, very minor. A lot of people probably not even notice it. I'm just, it's something that's there, so maybe I should mention it. I don't know. And yeah, this becomes a theme in my videos, but draw distance isn't the greatest. If there is grass around when the camera zooms out during travel, you can clearly see this dark bubble of grass shadow around your character. It looks bad. It would have been way better without any shadows for the grass at all. Luckily, the ground is not always grassy. Draw distance on various like shrubbery and stuff is pretty bad, I have to say. And also the draw distance on the bridge, or for the bridge rather, was obviously set without much testing. It is actually kind of strange, but like in one place I have found that there's like a weird spot at which the bridge disappears from the view. The game stops rendering it. But if you go like a few hundred meters, if you keep going away from the bridge, like in the same direction, right? So you're going farther from the bridge. In a few hundred meters, it pops up again. The game starts rendering it again for some reason. So there's like a weird patch. Well, there's this weird area in the game, and it's currently on the screen where the bridge stops rendering. But if you go a few hundred meters, or maybe like 100 meters or something, still away from the bridge, at some point it pops into view again. So yeah, the draw distance on the bridge is, yeah, kind of strange. Probably some testing wouldn't hurt, I think. Like, what's the point of hiring people, right? That like are actually good at noticing stuff, and maybe even hardcore gamers themselves. Creating maybe like an actual paid and respected position of a playtester. Nah, just, get some local kids to run around in your game, pay them like $1 an hour. Things will work themselves out, right? Well, that's how you get things like this, for example. The game does run at 60 FPS though, so, I mean, kind of part of the graphics topic, I guess. But like most of the time, the camera makes it somewhat hard to enjoy, which brings me to the next topic, the next point, which is gonna be point number 4, I think, gameplay. Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about the camera in this segment. But like obviously the camera is kind of part of the graphics, I suppose. But yeah, I'm gonna be talking about that stuff here in gameplay. So okay, gameplay-wise, the PS4 version is a copy and paste job of from I don't know, English hard, copy and paste of the original. And if the game didn't have the aforementioned atmosphere problem, I think it would have qualified for the ultimate remaster, mind you, but yeah, ultimate remaster version of Shadow of the Colossus. Unfortunately, in light of the atmosphere problem, pun intended, yes, light, haha, I find it hard to justify leaving in all the jank and bugs of the original. I mean, if you already make creative decisions, why not improve the gameplay? I mean, come on. Of course, it's like perfectly playable. Yeah, after all, it's one of the best games ever made. It could not have been one if it was nearly unplayable. The only gameplay difference I can think of right now is that the exploit of a non-stamina consuming diagonal jump during like wall scaling seems to no longer be in the game. Maybe it was patched in the HD remaster also, I don't know. The rest of the original gameplay experience is definitely still here, and while it's very nostalgic at all, yes, it gives us warm feelings and such, yeah, I know. In my opinion, it is pretty unacceptable in 2018 when this game was released, and I don't buy the argument that bringing all the jank over was absolutely necessary. Without it, the Shadow of the Colossus experience would not have been complete, it would be like missing something essential. No. It's, first of all, complete assumption, speculation, whatever. But mainly just nostalgia-driven nonsense. There yet to be a game that would have been worse off with better controls. Some crazies tried to make that argument with The Last Guardian, which I'm not gonna talk about here. The argument was that somehow shitty controls can make a game better. And literally the entire gaming community ruled against it, so you cannot make that argument here. In case you forgot, in Shadow of the Colossus, pretty much everything except basic movement is jank. In my opinion, 15 years ago it was acceptable because, well, to start with, it was 15 years ago. Unless you were playing Devil May Cry, Metal Gear Solid, Biohazard, Okami, God Hand, or like Prince of Persia, most games were relatively janky in one way or another. Maybe not all the way to jank, like all the time, but like most games were somewhere on the jank, non-jank spectrum. But additionally, the original game ran at like 15 FPS most of the time, so you were essentially playing in slow motion. Responsive controls would not have improved things much. In fact, I think a lot of the jank was actually sort of like masked by the terrible performance. In the quote-unquote remake, however, it's all on display. Wall scaling / colossi climbing is jank, aiming is jank. There's still like janky lingering AoE on colossi, like not even attacks, just like their actions, like stomping around and stuff. Being staggered when riding a Colossus is still jank. Half the time you get staggered when the Colossus barely moves. Other times you don't get staggered during some stages of the Colossus, like freaking out animation. Arrow's pathfinding still doesn't work properly, and the bug with him occasionally vanishing on camera and being like teleported a mile away, still in place. And finally, the camera. It's both bad and uncontrollable. It makes you think you can control it, but most of the time you cannot, because the moment you let go of the right stick, it returns to the position it wants to be in. That position often sucks, by the way. On several occasions, it literally makes you not see what you're doing. Granted, it tries to be helpful, kinda, but most of the time it fails. For example, when it zooms in during Colossus Ride, when you're on the glyph and charging your attack, that makes you completely disoriented, really, and not see like where the Colossus is going or what it's doing. And you kind of need to know those things. Sometimes, maybe, not all the time, but sometimes it's very helpful. But no, instead, you're completely disoriented. Nice. The problem with the camera being way too close half the time is actually a problem of a very narrow FOV. Again, if you're working on a remake, this is inexcusable for both fights and exploration. When the camera zooms out, it becomes somewhat bearable. It does it like during exploration, during fights as well. It does zoom out occasionally, but it happens automatically and you're not in control of that at all. If your like directorial decision when working on a remake like that is to have FOV this narrow, you're borderline obligated to give us an FOV slider, allowing to increase it at least a little bit. Or even a lot, at the cost of, like, performance. Why not? Let us decide. Or, okay, sure, like, do the console thing, right? AKA gamers are not allowed to make such decisions as increasing FOV to make themselves less nauseous when playing a game. Leave it fixed, but at least, like, make it more humane. This is why you need hardcore gamers as your playtesters. A lot of people working at your studio aren't like gamers themselves, like not really, so they may not realize things like that. Basic quality of life things. Yeah, no one would have said the FOV is way too wide, even if it was like significantly wider than this. Casuals would not have noticed that, but like most of us gamers, yeah, we would have really appreciated something like that. No one would have said, give us a slider so that we could decrease it. Like, no, sorry, you completely lose me here. If you want to go this narrow, either just don't, which is perfectly, like, good option. You're still in control, you're still not allowing, the customer to, like, customize their experience, to decide things for themselves, or give the players the slider. What also doesn't help your very narrow camera work is when you decide to shake it for no reason. Camera shake when you're riding RO and move at any speed is so absolutely unnecessary and of such poor taste in current day and age. It's absolutely out of your control to zoom it out, by the way, which I stated previously. When it randomly happens on its own, the camera, doesn't have shake when it happens. It stops shaking when the camera zooms out automatically on its own, occasionally. We are now so past garbage like camera shake, vignetting, which Shadow of the Colossus does have, by the way, blur of any kind, including shitty AA that makes the image a tad smoother, but also a lot less crisp. So I don't even know if a blurry image can be called smooth. All that crap was useful to hide graphical imperfections, during the days of standard resolutions and 30 FPS or something. Well, actually 30 FPS is not essential to the point I'm making here, but well, here it is anyway, I guess. Nowadays the resolutions are just too high to put literal shite on the screen. Well, because you can clearly see it now. The camera shake at 60 FPS, by the way, is also just an insult. It's like, stop shaking my screen, I'm trying to enjoy your actually smooth visuals, but you ain't letting me for some reason. Like, what's the problem? Game? Come on. I understand some use of shake in cutscenes and maybe even during gameplay, occasionally, why not? But as a constant state of the camera, I honestly don't know what the hell is wrong with you if you think it's better this way. It is only fair to note that the frame rate of 60 does make the game more responsive than the original, that ran at maybe 25 when nothing was happening on a good day. But it also makes the jank more obvious than ever, running at 60 I mean. It also actually makes the game significantly easier. Make of that what you will, I don't really see it as a problem. A big part of the original game's difficulty came from the fact that the jank was being multiplied by a 10 FPS performance. Now there is no longer such a factor, such a barrier. Yeah, even though struggling with mad jank is definitely a big part of the original game, and now it's reduced or just even completely eradicated, I don't think it really matters a lot. It's a puzzle game first anyways. If the actual gameplay realization of puzzle solutions was made easier by the jank becoming less unbearable due to switch to 60 FPS, I don't see how it can be a bad thing. So yeah, the game is easier now because it's more responsive. I'll take it, thank you. Not complaining about that. Okay, finally to the next point. Coins and overall useless progression. There are now collectible coins scattered throughout the world, which finally introduces meaningful exploration to Shadow of the Colossus. For the first time ever, really. In my opinion, very cool, and pretty much the main reason I got the game for. You need to complete the game at least twice and defeat most colossi in time attack on hard in order to get them all, to get all the coins. You can skip normal time attacks if you're not interested in the unlockables, but on hard, yeah, I think you need to kill at least 12 because the parachute item is required to get a few coins, absolutely required. By the way, if you aim to collect them all, finish all the time attacks right after your first completion of the game and look up a coins guide online. Otherwise, well, first of all, you're never gonna find all of them on your own anyway. Just trust me. And second of all, you might end up having to play through the entire game one additional time just to get a few coins. The few coins you can only access during Colossi story fights. If you don't know ahead of time, where they are, yeah, you might have to play through the game one additional time after you actually look up a guide and be like, oh god damn it, there was a coin during the fight only there. Oh my god, I need to play through the game again. Because yeah, those coins you can only pick up during Colossus story fights. So you're gonna want to avoid that, trust me. So look up a guide as soon as you feel like you've probably found like all the coins you can on your own. Also, the game doesn't tell you how many coins you've collected in the stats menu. Instead, it does it in the corner of the map without actually telling you what the number stands for. It's just a number in the corner of the map. So up until the end, I thought it was like the number of the quadrant, like you're currently in maybe or something. Yeah, the number in the left, in the lower left corner of the map is the amount of coins you found. The aforementioned progression is tied to story fights, which increase your stamina and health, and time attacks, which unlock cool stuff and is only available after the first playthrough. Time attacks don't increase your stamina, so even if you finish them all, you're not really any stronger for it. However, it's really not a big problem because you have to play through the game at least twice anyway in order to collect all the coins. You'll get your stamina, don't you worry. It's just that, well, even if you play on hard, the game is super easy in New Game Plus, and it's not especially difficult, on just a normal New Game either, especially if you played the game before. But after you complete all the time attacks and pretty much completely master the game, New Game Plus, yeah, not the most challenging thing in the world, definitely. In fact, very, very far from it. So it's like, okay, cool. Now I have all these cool unlockables, right? To, like, what? Dominate the game even more? And the same is double true for the coins, because in order to get them all, you have to complete most of the time attacks on hard. I mean, you can skip the normal ones. But yeah, you need to complete most of the time attacks, and the story, campaign, at least twice. And for that, you get a sword. Again, to do what with it exactly? Play the game some more? Nah, the way it is now, it should have unlocked either some additional content or maybe like an additional mode or something like that. Or it should have been, made possible to collect all the coins way sooner on your first playthrough of the game, to leave yourself at least some content to complete after you have gotten, the final upgrade, after you collected them all. Instead, you pretty much 100% the game, in order to unlock the ultimate item, in order to do what with it. By then, you're done with the game. Okay, slowly starting to wrap things up. Point number 6. Should I go for the PS4 Ultra remaster if I've never played the original or the PS3 remaster? If PS4 is your only option, yes. The world might be less mysterious and interesting, intriguing, but the Colossi fights are still great, in fact, probably better than ever. Number 7. Should I go for the PS4 Ultra Remaster if I have played the original or the PS3 Remaster? Well, if you played the original 15 years ago and don't mind replaying it, but all you've got now is a PS4, not even a slightest chance of maybe potentially getting a PS3 or 2 for that matter, then maybe. Maybe you should get this one? Question mark. I don't know. Yeah. The answer is maybe. But if you're truly interested in video games and you realize that the modern video games are basically unplayable, you'll end up with a PS3 at some point. Trust me. And the PS3 has the HD remaster of Shadow of the Colossus. Or you'll probably end up with a PS2 as well, actually, at some point. Or you'll just, get to the point where you'll be emulating a lot of PS2. So yeah, if somehow with absolute certainty you can state that you're absolutely never getting yourself a PS3 or 2 or like emulation, then yeah, sure, go for the PS4 Ultra Remaster of Shadow of the Colossus. It's perfectly playable game. If your last session of Shadow of the Colossus was less than 15 years ago, 50 years ago, yeah, 15 years ago, I say think twice. Unless the copy of the game is like incredibly cheap, of course, in which case, sure, just buy it. I doubt you'll regret the purchase. That possibility aside, it's a puzzle game you already know all the solutions for, right? If you played it before. There is very little chance you'll manage to keep being interested in the game to complete most of the New Game Plus shenanigans, I think, which is where most of the game is, in my opinion. However, if you're not interested in any New Game Plus shenanigans, mainly, getting all the coins, and just want to play through the game once and call it a complete experience, yeah, you'll get your fun out of it, maybe. After all, it will be incredibly easy, still good though, so yeah, I guess ultimately the decision is yours. Sum up, by getting Shadow of the Colossus on PS4, you get a version that, while technically superior, offers absolutely unnecessary, unfiltered jank of the original, and robs the world of its atmosphere, literally. It would have been a brilliant mega remaster, if not for that. Or it would have been a perfect remake if they at least fixed the jank. The camera and its FOV fix would have been so nice. It pains me to say honestly, but I think this PS4 version is pretty half-assed. Again, literally, it's neither a remake, definitely not that, nor a remaster, because it doesn't line up with the original visual direction at all, except for the architecture, but everything else is wrong. If you can, just play the original. PS3 or 2, emulation, pick and choose. Unless you're a casual, of course, therefore, you don't care. Then this is definitely for you, this is your choice. I love Shadow of the Colossus. This version is fine. Love y'all, thank you so very much. Very sorry for the length of the video. I'm out.